All right. So, bear with me. I'm getting over a sickness. My throat is still pretty messed up, so might cough my way through this. But good evening and welcome to tonight's segment of the faculty lecture series. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Jess Gallardi. I'm director and professor here, and I coordinate the series. So thanks for attending tonight's lecture. Keep an eye out for upcoming lectures. I send those out through email, or you can get a RAC card that's over there on the whiteboard. Next lecture is next Thursday, April 3rd, featuring Dr. Kazi Zawad Arifin of Computer Science. So tonight's event is presented by Dr. Chris Kam, Assistant Professor in Psychology in the School of Humanities and Social Sciences. Chris has an undergrad degree in Psychology and Sociology from the University of Toronto. He studied spiritual formation at Tyndale University, where he got his Master's of Divinity, his PhD in Counseling and Spirituality at St. Paul University in Ottawa, Canada. Dr. Kam takes a Jungian approach to therapy with nonlinear insight and wisdom, helping others interpret their dreams from a Jungian perspective. He's mindful that psychology literally means the study of the soul. So he tries to keep the soul in psychology. He knows this approach helps people surprise themselves, and he himself is always open to surprises and wants to learn wisdom from whatever sources he encounters. So tonight's lecture is titled What AI Can Never Do, Part 2, A Therapist Strikes Back for Team Human. And in his words, AI keeps advancing at a dizzying pace. Many worry that it will replace us humans. Will there be anything left that us humans can do that AI can't? So this lecture will argue a resounding yes and provide additional points from the previous one. The arguments won't come with a SWAT battering ram smashing through the front door with bullets of computational logic flying. They'll come through the therapist's back door of emotional exploration of visceral responses to everyday life. Puncturing assertiveness from the other side will be transformed into philosophical arm locks, jiu-jitsuing new perspectives. Some will be convinced, others won't, and you can decide for yourself. So help me in welcoming Dr. Kam.
Thanks, Jess. Yes. Thank you. Okay, thank you for coming out. Some of us in this room, you were in part one, where I gave some arguments about what AI can never do. So some do not know my background. I'll just quickly say a little bit more. So I am not going to come at this from a computer science perspective. Right? I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not an engineer. I'm bad at that stuff. But what I have spent years training in is how the unconscious mind works, right? How the soul works. Right? So I'm going to be using this word soul quite a bit. Right? Hopefully it doesn't freak people out. What I mean by that, for our purposes tonight, the deepest part of us. Right? The deepest part of us that's fundamental, most fundamental to us, yet at the same time we don't have full control over it. Right? That's, for our purposes tonight, that's what I mean by soul. Okay, so this was mentioned in the introduction, the study of the soul, psychology. Okay, let's get started. These two quotes, these were given in last semester's part one. I'll just repeat them again. They're pretty bold assertions in terms of what computer science can do, potentials of AI, things like that, computational machines. So computer scientist at MIT, Marvin Minsky, says the idea that machines can't do things human can is a pure myth. John McCarthy from Stanford University, computer scientist, he says every aspect of learning or any other feature of intelligence can in principle be so precisely described that a machine can be made to simulate it. Right, so these are bold claims, basically saying the sky is the limit. Right? AI can pretty much simulate and do anything us humans can do. Okay, what does a therapist have to say? Right? You'll see tonight, right? Anyone ever watch UFC? Right, you have fighters, some like standing on their feet, right? Some like to bring the fight down to ground and pound. So you will have the computational scientists, computer scientists, they will try to keep things in terms of like airtight logic reasoning, whereas like a therapist will try to always bring it down, right? Down to earth, keep the debate there, and be like, okay, do you really believe this? If you really believe this, then you should say yes to this question. But you're not saying yes to this question, and you're not saying yes to this question because another part of you knows you cannot, in good faith, answer with a yes. Okay, so let's start. You can only experience as much meaning as a computer. Right? Just sit with this. Right? You can only experience as much meaning as a computer. How would you feel if someone said that to you? How would you feel? Right? How would you feel if someone said this to your kid? Right? If your elementary school teacher for your kid said to your kid, yeah, in terms of meaning in life, you're only going to experience as much meaning as a computer. If there's something in you that feels your spider sense, this is just off. I don't fully know why, I can't fully articulate it, but something's off, the therapist will be like, you should listen to that, pay attention to it, and see what it's about. Right? Something's not fitting right, something's incongruent for a reason, right? And as you explore that more, you can articulate that more. Question, can AI experience deep meaning in life? Right? Just sit with that. Right? A lot of times, questions can leave a whole philosophy very uncomfortable. And sometimes we just got to ask the question and let the computer scientists sit with that. Right? Can it experience as much meaning as insert historical figure who changed history? Another thought experiment. If an AI programmer told you, I created an AI program that experiences as much meaning as Martin Luther King, right? How would you feel? That's kind of weird. Am I the only one in the room that feels this kind of weird? A therapist would be, okay, I don't fully know, I can't articulate every single unit of logical reasoning why this is weird, but this is freaking weird. And we should really pay attention to this stuff if we really think AI can simulate 100% of what us humans can simulate or experience. This makes us pause, right? Artificial meaning. Even if you could experience artificial meaning, would you want to? Right? Would you want to? It's one of those oxymorons. Once you put it together, would you want ChatGPT to decide for you what the ultimate meaning of your life is? Bill Maher says laughter is really important because it's involuntary, right? And it's really, you might not laugh out loud, you might be laughing inside. Pay attention to that laughter because there's a truth and a lot of humor. Right? Deepest levels of meaning come from the depths of the soul, right? So as what was said in the introduction, I come from the psychoanalytic perspective. We focus on the unconscious. We focus on the depths. We focus on the ocean springs, right, of what's going on. If your ocean is a mind, we want to see what's way, way, way down there, deeper than what submarines can cover. And this is where meaning comes from. When you talk to many clients, you talk to many people, they're talking about what gives them deep meaning. They can't fully articulate it themselves, and that's a good thing. Right? Because if you could articulate the whole thing exhaustively, it would take some of the mystery away from it. It would take some of the sacredness away from it. So once you discover your calling and purpose in life, you won't fully understand why it fulfills you. Right? And this is kind of cool, it's kind of mysterious, and it's really validating at the same time. Ruth Haley Barton, she says, I posted this quote in part 1. It's so powerful, I'm going to post it in part 2 here as well. This is something I can't not do for reasons I am unable to explain to anyone else and don't fully understand myself, but that are nonetheless compelling. Now, if we feel this in terms of what gives us meaning, I don't know how the hell are we going to program this in someone if we don't even know how it happens inside of ourselves? Okay, pivot a little bit. Right? Do you truly know something if you artificially know it? Right? Do you truly know something if you artificially know it? Take a step back. How do you know if someone knows something at all? This gets a little philosophical. If you have a 4-year-old, 4-year-old hears someone say 8 times 9 equals 72. Maybe hears the parents say it or something like that. 4-year-old hears it, 8 times 9 equals 72, parrots it. Okay, 8 times 9 equals 72. Does the 4-year-old understand it? You could argue in a way, but in another way, the 4-year-old doesn't understand it, right? Doesn't really know it. Right? If a person beside you here parrots E equals mc squared, do they understand it? You know, Dan would understand it. He's from math faculty. So if someone just parrots E equals mc squared, right, do they really know it? Well, we'd really have to see. Right? They can say it. Do they really know it? If ChatGPT parrots one of the deepest, most unique emotional experiences you've had, does it know it? Right? Think of some of the deepest experiences you've had in life. Right? If ChatGPT can paraphrase it back to you with intelligently computed wording, does it really get it? Some questions to consider. Okay, so these words, the following are going to be some life lessons that are really rich, and they're long journeys for all of us. Really important for us to know. Right? How do you know if someone really knows this stuff? It doesn't matter that much what others think of me. Right? My value isn't from my performance. I'm not defined by my failures. I'm lovable even when I screw up and embarrass myself. These are life lessons. Right? We have to go through a Lord of the Rings journey from the head to the heart. It is a rough, messy journey, well worth it. It's non-linear, right? It's frustrating, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back. It's a wrestle. Right? How do you know? Right? If AI just says these things, does AI really know these things? Right? If someone just reads these words, hears this, I'm not defined by my failures, and then they parrot the phrase, do they really know it? Right? Do they really know it? Well, how would you really know if they really know it? If they just failed, how does their nervous system feel? Right? Unconsciously, how are they like? Right? Of course we're human, failing sucks, blah, blah, blah. But how someone would really, really know that they're not defined by their failures, they still open themselves up to love. And they receive that love. And it's one of those things, in theory, it's really neat. In practice on the streets, very messy. And it's a journey to really know them. Right? AI can say this stuff, doesn't know it like humans do. Right? If you've really grasped these things, but they feel artificial, have you really grasped them? Because if it feels artificial, chances are you probably haven't had that unique, deep, organic, personal owning of them. Because when you and I really own a lesson with personal, unique absorption and digestion, very idiosyncratic metabolism, so to speak, that is when it doesn't feel artificial at all. It feels organic and deep. Artificial, in a way, you could say it's the opposite of something that's organic and deep. Talked a bit about this. Okay, so the hidden, you can say the hidden God, the hidden idol, the hidden preoccupation, the hidden obsession with a lot of AI advancements is efficiency. How can we do this more efficiently? This, how can we do this more efficiently? That, right? Efficiency, 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 make things more convenient. Would AI be the best teacher for patients? Right? Sit with this. Once again, would AI be a better teacher for patients? Or would a human who's really absorbed deep lessons in their soul of what it means to be patient, would you rather learn from the human? I would rather learn from the human because the AI, once again, it will artificially compute these really pretty sounding words. It's never experienced it. What about patience with ourselves? This is a virtue that therapists, first of all, us therapists ourselves, we work hard on this. It's a lifelong journey, right? And then what we learn from trying to be patient with ourselves, we try to introduce to our clients, right? Can you be more patient with yourself? With self-compassion, self-kindness, right? You screwed up for the 54th time. Can you still be patient with yourself, right? That helps us with love. There's that biblical saying, right? Love is patient, love is kind. It's very practical as well, right? If you want to love yourself, you have to be very patient with yourself. Right? The desire to learn patience as quickly as possible gets in the way of learning it. Right? So here's a question. Can AI be a better teacher for patience than a deeply wise person who has tons of it? Right? Maybe someone in the room might be convinced that AI would be a better teacher. I would say try that experiment, right? And compare yourself to someone else who's learning from a human being how to be patient. See which is better, right? Because that's an open experiment. A soul can't feel peace when it's desiring efficiency and patience at the same time. So one key premise in Jungian psychology, depth psychology, is peace comes from an active contradiction inside of you, inside of me, right? So if one part of us, I want to be efficient, another part of us, I want to be patient, that's an internal, not internal contradiction, that lacks peace, right? So actually, for us to have more peace, one of these have to go. In many cases, got to be efficiency, right? And AI's efficiency has to get rid of itself, the efficiency aspect of AI, for us to learn patience, especially with ourselves. Right? Observe the person who has deep inner peace. They're patient with themselves on a very deep level. Right? And there's nothing artificial about this. You can say there's no shortcuts to it too. Right? When we've been struggling with the same problems for years, right? Addiction is something that hurts us. When we've been impatient with ourselves and self-critical, would we prefer an AI or a human teacher to learn patience with ourselves? Once again, the therapist phrase tonight is sit with it. Right? Sit with it and see how that sits with you. Okay. Someone thinks to themselves, I love this person's paradox of emotionally mature childlikeness. It's intriguing. I want to grow in this. So you meet these rare individuals, and they are a living paradox, right? They know how to be emotionally mature, right? Take responsibility for their own emotions, have insight into their own emotions. They're not impulsive, and they have a childlike wonder, right? And there's this mysterious union in these people, and it's intriguing, it's magnetizing. I want to grow in that. Would you want AI to teach you? That would feel weird, right? This type of paradox, there's nothing artificial about it. If it's artificial, right, it feels fake, right? But if someone embodies this stuff with depth, very organic, right? And that's what makes it magnetizing, right? If it's not organic, it's false, right? How much can AI help in this? Here's another paradox. Someone thinks to themselves, I'm intrigued by this leader's humble authoritativeness and authoritative humility. Magnetizing paradox. I want to grow in this. Right? So, once again, you get these rare leaders. Well, usually like what makes tabloids, what makes front news headlines, right? Wussy leader, arrogant dictator leader. But then you have these rare leaders who know how to be very humble, so everyone in the room doesn't feel threatened. No one feels threatened in the room, yet no one in the room would want to mess with them, right? The best analogy I have is Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, Aslan, right? Humble authoritativeness, authoritative humility. I want to grow in that. Oh, just learn from AI. Just sit with that. Just sit with that. I personally don't think AI can really help you grow in this. It might have some nice theoretical sounding stuff that's artificial, but in order for you and I to grow in this stuff, we need a live role model in front of us, and we learn from them. If you had to choose, would you rather have AI teach you this, right, or a human? When it comes to human teachers, they'll feel personal impressions from deep and long journeys of mysterious maturity. They won't fully know how this happens, because there's something mysterious about this. They won't fully know how it happens, but they experience it. And even though they don't fully understand, they can help guide others. The AI bot will compute impersonal optimal word combinations on a topic. Do you want to learn from that? I personally wouldn't for this stuff. Maybe for other stuff, but not for this stuff. Human language is about expressing impressions, right? Each new sentence is a new impression, right? So every single sentence you have heard today from other people have been impressions, right? Every new impression. Right now, every sentence coming out of my mouth, it's a new impression. Right? A unique and organic impression coming from your lips has a unique and organic linguistical fingerprint. Its signature is your soul's melody behind the notes. Right? Now, this is some intuitive metaphorical language, but it's trying to illustrate stuff we can't fully understand, but we know. Right? This is different from AI calculating an optimal word combination to mimic an original impression when there was no original impression at all. It's trying to talk about impressions it can't even experience, whereas us humans, we know when someone's authentic. This person's speaking from their own personal impressions. Now, this person's being fake. They're talking about these weird artificial impressions they've never even experienced. That's fake. This other person, this person's authentic. This person is speaking what they really feel. They're live impressions without filter. This person's fake over here. They're filtering their impressions. They're only saying some of their impressions, but they're not saying the other impressions. Right? Language is about impressions. Artificial impressions, right, have artificial wording. Deep organic impressions have deep organic wording. Right? On paper, it seems similar. Right? But we all know, just pick your favorite rapper. Your rapper is your favorite rapper because he or she feels these cool impressions and knows how to translate them. And if you give the same rap words to someone who is just learning English on day 3, and they rap the same words, it's not going to be as cool as your favorite rapper rapping them, because they're not going to feel the exact same impressions from the hood. Right? They've never been in the hood. They don't know the hood's impressions, but they're still saying the words. Right? And they're like, yeah, thank you, good job. Whereas like the real rapper, wow, this person's keeping it real. They really feel the impressions, and they say it smoothly with flow. Right? Artificial language says the notes without the melody. ChatGPT says the words without the subjective experience of the ideas. Right? The emotional music that comes when entertaining, energizing ideas. Right? Think about the subject you love thinking about the most. You will metaphorically feel some of these at least. The human juices that flow when thinking about them, the intellectual adrenaline, right? The philosophical drama of new ideas clashing with old ones, the intuitive energy connecting multiple ideas, electrifying them with the fresh currents, the excitement of a breakthrough in a new train of thought, a sudden arousal when anticipating a climactic ending of suspenseful line of reasoning, surprise at one's own intellectual plot twists, right? These experiences of intellectual drama feel different if it's artificial, right? Artificial intellectual adrenaline, that feels weird, right? But what every prof dreams for is their students to experience this and fall in love with the subject. Because I teach psychology, so does Rena. I'm going to put words in Rena's mouth. She wants this too for her students, right? We want you to experience this intellectual drama, and this is robbed if you just get ChatGPT to write a paper for you, right? You miss out on this whole intellectual movie. Right? So a side note, dealing with the heart of AI plagiarism attempts in students, their love of intellectual drama must be greater than their desire to not think. I'm just going to say it. Right? Discovering intellectual impressionistic art must captivate them more than the desire to get away with as little thinking as possible. I think this is how we, as educators and future educators, right, for the students in the room, this gets at the core of the problem. Can they fall in love with things so much that artificial wording can sometimes be a consult, right? Temporary consultation, but you go back to your own organic intellectual drama when thinking of the subject matter. Okay, pivot again. Switching gears a bit. Think of some of the deepest moments you've experienced in life. Already hinted at this. Was there anything artificial about them? Right? Maybe it's one of the best dates you've had with your partner. Right? Or one of the most meaningful community hangouts you've had with your friends. Right? One of the best moments in a yearbook memory, so to speak. Was there anything artificial about them? No. I'm assuming no, at least. So if not, can AI create the deepest moments you'll cherish on your deathbed? Doubt it. Hinted at this, right? The deepest moments in your life, that really meaningful date, like marriage anniversary, right? That special moment with your kid, right? Kid spoke from his or her heart to you about their love towards you, right? They're touching a part of you you can't fully control, at least from the psychoanalytic perspective, right? If you can fully control it, that's not the deepest part of you, at least according to the psychoanalytic tradition, which I'm from. The deeper in the psyche you go, the less formulaic, algorithmic, replicable, and artificial it is, right? The deeper you go, the less this stuff. And you and I don't fully know why. Right? If you can consciously control it, it's not the deepest part of you. Deepest parts of you can't control. Grieving a loved one, right? The grieving process of a loved one, non-linear. You cannot control it, provided they were really close to you. Right? One day you're going to be okay. Another day you're going to be terrible, grieving hell. This one, it's a mediocre day. Oh, I actually feel okay. And then back to grieving hell, right? And you can't control it because that dear friend has touched a deep part of you don't fully have control over. Now it's being amputated. The part of you that was touched doesn't know how to deal with it, has a life of its own. Right? On a positive note, the deepest feeling you have for your child, you can't fully control it. Now, these parts of you and me, right, they have a life of their own, feel so deeply you at their core at the same time. So these are the premises I'm working with here. Right? The deepest parts of you, they have a life of their own. They're autonomous. They do their own thing. And they feel so deeply us at our core at the same time. This is how you know when art is touching you at this level, when another person is touching you at this level with their love, right? Or on a sad note, hate. When hate affects you that much, it's because it's touching this part. Okay, with these premises, artists. Artists in the room, you don't even have to explain this too much, they just know it, right? When they're creating their art, painting, music, sculpture, other stuff, they know their best stuff, it's from the deepest parts of them that have a life of their own, and These parts of them, they feel so deeply them. They feel so central, so core to them at the same time. Right? So these deepest parts, they can't be formulated, they can't be computed, right? They don't obey algorithms. They have a life of their own. They won't bow down to AI. Right? Yes, AI can influence them to some extent, but it will have severe, severe limits. Right? The deepest part of you will surprise you. Right? If you never surprise yourself, you've never been to the deepest parts of you. Right? But it's a wonderful thing when you and I surprise ourselves. Like, for example, we might think, bluntly speaking, I'm somewhat of a self-focused person, self-absorbed person, but whoa, I did something selfless there. I honestly was not expecting that inside of myself. I usually hate this person who hates me, but why am I feeling this love for them? I'm supposed to hate them, but there's something in me that loves them. Right? You surprise yourself. Right? Those who are regularly in touch with their deepest parts of themselves regularly surprise themselves. And then they can feel like a kid, right? Because kids are open to being surprised, and sometimes us adults, our openness to surprise closes. We just have to go deeper. Okay. Feeling a paradox in your depths is a deeply human thing. There's nothing artificial about it. Right? So, think of your favorite movie characters, right? Provided that they have like some depth and substance to them. It's meaningful. Right? These are the most powerful movie moments. When your characters paradoxically feel opposite feelings at the same time that deeply war within them, and they can't control the experience. You see it on their faces with those best actors, maybe like Russell Crowe or something like that. They can embody these paradoxes in a way that touches the viewer deeply. Right? I call them paradoxical cocktails. Right? Loving and hating someone at the same time. Right? A lot of rom-coms have this. Right? Wanting to tell a loved one the truth, but also not wanting to tell them the truth to protect them at the same time. And the best actors and actresses, they know how to embody this in the face in an organic way. Right? Wanting control of a situation and the peace of letting go of it at the same time. Right? A traditionally selfish person with the inner civil war behind their surprising choice to sacrifice. At that last moment where they might sacrifice themselves for the whole crew when they were traditionally a very selfish character, see it in their eyes at that last minute of their life when they surprise themselves. This is what's happening. Right? A deep part of them is really touched. And the deep part of them touches the deep part of the other characters too. Right? Sadly commiserating on past memories while beautifully cherishing them at the same time. When looking at the stars at night, feeling so small in such an energizing and life-giving way. Normally when we feel small, it can be demoralizing, shameful. But in this context, the smaller you feel, the smaller I feel in the midst of the stars, the greater the feeling is. It's a paradox, right? And this is something, at least I would argue, unique to us humans. And if AI tries to formulate this, compute this, algorithmize it, I just made up a word, would you pay money to see it? It'd be kind of weird, right? We would use the word fake. But each one of us in this room, we're capable of this, and those AI robots will have nothing on us, at least for this stuff. Right? And this is the stuff that touches us when we see it in other humans. And when we experience this stuff, we will touch the deepest parts of other people in ways that AI cannot. Artificiality ruins the experiences of a paradox. Right? One of the deepest moments of human connection is when one person's paradoxical cocktail connects with another's paradoxical cocktail. This is where this multiplies. Right? For example, it sounds abstract, but I know you well and love you. So this red stuff is person one, blue stuff is person two. Person one feels, I know you well and I love you. And there's mysterious parts of you I don't fully understand, and I love it. Person two, I know you well and love you, and there's mysterious parts of you I don't understand and love. You mix these two, exponential explosion of the humanist to humanist connection. Snap a minute to end the debate. It's over, AI, it's over. Right. Sorry for those. I just spoiled it if you haven't seen it. Okay. Do we want the artificial coexistence of opposite emotions? Right. You feel kind of weird. Even if you could get the artificial coexistence of opposite emotions, would you and I want it? Really? Right. If super advanced AI produced this, would it feel genuine? Right. Would you want this on a date? Might ruin the date. If your dearest loved one felt an artificial paradoxical cocktail towards you, how would you feel? Sit with that. Okay, so at the end of the day, AI is about tools. People don't think about tools in their deathbed unless they've served the purposes of human-human connection. They can get in the way of our humanists connecting with the humanists of others. Right? So you can always do the deathbed test to pop illusions. Right? Wisdom is about popping illusions, and that's why the deathbed test can give some wisdom, because the deathbed test can pop illusions of what's pseudo-important and what's really important. Obviously, AI has some use, don't want to demonize it, but it's not of ultimate importance because we're not going to be thinking about it on our deathbeds. Right? On our deathbeds, none of us will be cherishing anything artificial. AI can never get us to cherish it on our deathbeds. Cool. So I came at this from a therapist perspective. This is obviously different from computational logic debate versus computational logic. It's just a different perspective. And I've just planted and sowed some questions, seeds of questions. Hopefully, right, you will water those questions and see what shoots out of the soil, topsoil of your mind. These are questions that we should continue to consider as AI advances, because we have to continually dialogue with AI. We don't want to go in either extreme, throw it away completely, or worship it because of stuff like this. Okay, so that's it in terms of the formal presentation. I don't know if people have questions. I'm not an AI expert. I do listen to podcasts about the latest developments sometimes. But my wheelhouse is therapy, so if you do have a question, I come at it from a therapist's perspectives. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
A pair of questions, kind of a single question, and then another question. Would you argue we are more than, do we exist somewhere else but our neural circuitry, and are we more than the atoms that constitute us?
Yes.
Yeah. And second question, are you familiar with Arthur C. Clarke?
No. Oh. Name rings a bell, but not with the work.
Technology sufficiently advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic.
Oh, okay.
Second question is, do you believe there's a possibility AI cannot do this is similar to the category argument that existed before Deep Blue, where people would argue it can never beat a human in chess? And then Deep Blue occurred, and Deep Blue became a grandmaster in chess.
So you're gonna have to rephrase that question, because
Do you think
wait till the
AI
answer,
could emulate humanness given sufficient advancement?
could it imitate humanness?
Imitate or emulate?
I personally, I have my doubts when it comes to the depths of the psyche. I think it could imitate it, but it would have an artificial feel towards it. So I guess my way of framing it, there's some things it could not imitate non-artificially. That makes sense. I don't know if you wanted me to elaborate on your first question or not. If you don't, that's okay.
Yeah, I was curious there, like, how would you describe the space we exist if we're beyond the physics of it?
Okay, so good question. So let's say this table right here, right? So let's say, I don't know if I'm going to see it. It's a table. So let's say I took 1/5 of this table and replaced it. Right? Would it be the same table?
That's an interesting counter.
Good pun. So I'll just carry this further, right? So if I replace 2/5 of it, would it be the same table?
I
Right?
think the only thing that could be sustained is it would serve the same function.
Okay, so it serves the same function, but in terms of its ontology, would it be the same?
I would argue no.
Yeah, I would agree, right? So if I replace 3/5 of it, 4/5 of it, 5/5 of it, now everyone would agree this is not the same table, right? Now think of us human beings, right? My science needs to be updated, so if anyone knows the updated science, let me know. I heard before, in 7 years, every single atom in the human body is replaced, or something like that, right? So if you've been in a relationship with someone for 21 years, right, they've changed multiple times because every single atom of them has been replaced, right? In a longer time, I think all the cells, every single cell is replaced eventually too, and then we'd ask ourselves, is this the same person? Well, if the only reality that exists is that person's physical atoms and or cells, and every single atom and cell has been replaced, someone should only serve 7 years of jail time because after 7 years, they're a completely different person. But we know, no, you did that, you should have a life sentence, right? So intuitively, the perspective I come from is we don't fully know, but we know the person you have been friends with or married to for more than 7 years is still the same person, even though every single atom and cell in them has been replaced. So, and from my perspective, it's whatever you want to call it, the part of them that's beyond their physical cells and atoms, you can argue part of that is the soul, and I would argue that's what AI cannot imitate.
So you would say that informational pattern that exists across shifting in atoms is the extra space, so the pattern in time.
Wow, that's beyond me, to be honest. I don't know if what I would say would cohere with what you're saying, but basically I believe we have an invisible, non-physical part of us, immaterial part of us.
Spirit or something.
Spirit, soul, yeah. Cool. Yeah, thanks for the question. Anyone else? Yeah.
So I'm curious, and I hope I can phrase this right. So I'm curious, this is sort of kind of tangential, but not really. How you as a therapist, and understanding that it's fiction, but from a philosophical point of view, how you react and think about to characters like Data in Star Trek.
Data?
Have you seen Star Trek Next Generation? Or characters, robotic characters who are learning to be human.
Oh, yeah.
And that are, throughout the course of the series, become more and more human. I think it's no coincidence that in many, I won't say all, many of these texts tend to be non-spiritual. But I'm curious, when you see texts like this, given this point of view, how you feel about them, where they miss things, where the possibilities might lie. I'm just very curious.
Yeah, that's a great question. So these are my tests. Can they do this stuff non-artificially? Right? I would ask, right, can they embody all these things? Like maybe not every single last one, but Do they have the capacity to do this? And if they do, I would argue, I'm biased, they're borrowing from an understanding of human nature and just injecting it in that C-3PO or something. I don't know if C-3PO qualifies, but yeah, so they're injecting Sheldon Cooper inside C-3PO. So
So what I hear you arguing is ultimately we can't get away from this idea that this is fiction, that there's simply not a way that an artificial intelligence could ever truly have a soul.
in my perspective, no. Yeah, and I think I said this in the other lecture last semester. There's a difference between artificiality and fiction. Right? Artificiality is formulaic. A fiction, it is human-made, but it can be non-linearly produced, right, from the non-computational part of us, and hence, from my perspective, I'm not familiar with Star Trek, but let's say Star Wars, right? Different characters, even though they're fictional, like they don't exist, you can argue they can be non-formulaically produced with organic originality, symbolizing a part of our human nature. That's like that as well. Right? So Luke Skywalker, you could say he's a symbol. Maybe R2-D2 symbolizes something, I don't know. But they all symbolize some parts of the human nature. Right? So that's how I would take that. Yeah.
I have another.
Is it okay if I go? Yeah, Anastasia.
For individuals that experience trauma and lack of guidance and feel alone in this world, do you believe that AI could be a form of like movies and books of an escape from reality and positively like build characteristics in their personality?
Yeah, personally, I think it can help to some extent, right? Like AI is good at helping us learn the fundamentals of something. So maybe if someone hasn't talked to a therapist before and all they have is AI, that would help somewhat. However, deeper layers of healing need to be non-artificial, right? And social wounds have to be socially healed, right? So I would say once it reaches a point, it has to send off the person to a human therapist and human community to be healed, because the deeper you go, like the more artificiality will just feel empty. That's my opinion. Yeah. If there's no one else, round two.
So I'm trying to think of kind of a structure to frame the question. If you think of a linear graph, artificial and AI on one side, humans on the other, neuroscience has demonstrated that sociopaths and psychopaths lack some neurocircuitry. So would you say there's somewhere in that in-between on those two sides?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So from my perspective, with my biases, I'll just admit them, I think the psychopath has the dormant capacity to get in touch with deeper emotions and empathy and even potential selflessness. Whether they will is a totally different thing. But AI, does it have the potential for all this stuff? I personally would say no. But there's a wall, and the wall in the psychopath has come from hurt. Like they've been hurt themselves. Right? They've told themselves certain narratives, and those self-narratives block them from penetrating them into this stuff. Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Any other final questions? Yeah.
So I'm trying to think how to ask this. Going back to the impressions, and the answer may be I'm not understanding what you're saying. So let me admit that. So you say impression, the language are impressions, they're linguistic fingerprints of the soul's melody. So when we speak, where does things like, so for instance, cussing. or violent nonverbal reactions. How does that, kind of setting AI aside for a minute, how does that fit into this theory of the source melody and the linguistic fingerprint?
Yeah. So to apply that to what you're saying, vulgar language comes from vulgar impressions of things. Yeah, impressions come from certain contexts. That's why certain words can have the same denotated meaning, but the connotations come from certain contexts. Certain contexts have waste-filled garbage, baggage-like impressions. And when a certain trigger in the environment triggers those impressions, someone feels those impressions, they might say them verbally or non-verbally.
That actually also clarifies for me what you were saying in terms of these two things kind of interacting with each other. The impressions, that language is a reflection of those impressions through its denotation and its connotation, but also in turn experiences inform that language.
Yeah, exactly. So when AI swears, like it just feels different from someone who organically swears. It feels more like someone who inorganically swears and they're trying to sound tough and mean, right? But if someone like swears from their soul, it sounds so weird to say. It's like, okay, this guy's authentic, right? And that's it's so different from like ChatGPT like dropping an F-bomb. It's just weird. Yeah. So yeah. Once again, the therapist would say the laughter is important. It's pointing to something because humor is somewhat of a signpost to some aspect of truth. So, yeah. Okay, any final questions? Yeah, final question.
Do you see areas where AI could help augment human therapists or human psychotherapy, perhaps for people who have a resistance to even ask some basic questions or feel more comfortable or be directed to see an actual therapist? And also, do you see areas where AI could be sort of an assistance tool to help you maybe take something a client has said and get some other different ideas about context that you may have not thought of yourself in session?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's very good as an informational consultant. So the analogy I would use is the therapist should be the superhero, even though like it has bad connotations and other therapists, no, you're not saving the client. But for our purposes, right, for our concepts, therapist is a superhero, ChatGPT is the sidekick, right? You have Batman, then you have Robin. But if it's really not about Robin, right? So in terms of informational, oh wow, I don't know this culture. Let me just quick do some ChatGPT stuff about this culture. I don't know the specific permutation of this DSM psychological disorder. Let me look it up. How does that mix with this other permutation of, and then informationally, really good. But in terms of the soul's trauma, and need for love, need for self-patience, need for self-care, right? I think that we need from other humans. Yeah. Yeah, welcome. Okay, so if there's no other questions, thank you for your time. It's been great. And let's keep it.